Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and let me ask you something that might just change your entire day. What if I told you that the spare change rattling around in your car's cup holder, the coins you casually toss into a jar without a second thought, or that quarter you're about to use at the vending machine could actually be worth $87 million? Yes, you heard that right, 87 million, and before you dismiss this as impossible or think I'm exaggerating for effect, I need you to understand that we're about to dive deep into the absolutely mind-blowing world of the 1989 P quarter, a coin so extraordinarily rare and valuable that finding one would instantly transform you from an everyday person into someone who never has to worry about money again for the rest of their life. Now, the 1989 P quarter might look completely ordinary at first glance. It's got George Washington's profile on the front just like every other quarter you've ever seen. It's got that familiar eagle on the back, and if you saw it mixed in with your regular pocket change, you'd probably think absolutely nothing of it and spend it on a parking meter or a candy bar without giving it a second thought. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Certain 1989 P quarters, specifically those with a particular combination of rare minting errors and perfect preservation conditions, have been valued at astronomical figures, with the absolute finest specimens reaching that staggering $87 million mark at exclusive numismatic auctions where the world's wealthiest collectors gather to compete for these metallic treasures. But here's what you really need to know, and this is where you need to pay very close attention because this information could literally make you rich. The 1989 P quarter was minted in Philadelphia, that's what the P stands for, and during that production year, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins. They were churning them out by the millions and sending them into circulation across the entire United States, which means that statistically speaking, there's a very real possibility that you might have one of these incredible coins somewhere in your possession right now, sitting unnoticed in a drawer, forgotten in an old wallet, or mixed into a collection of loose change that you've been ignoring for years. The 1989 mintage year is particularly significant in numismatic history because this was a transitional period for American quarter production. The dies and planchets being used at the Philadelphia Mint during this time were showing signs of wear, which led to some absolutely fascinating varieties and errors that make certain 1989 P quarters exponentially more valuable than their face value. And collectors have identified several key error types that can turn an ordinary quarter into a fortune. We're talking about dramatic die cracks that create bold raised lines across Washington's face or through the eagle on the reverse. We're looking at OFF center strikes where the design is misaligned dramatically, creating a lopsided appearance that immediately catches the eye, and then there are the incredibly rare double die errors where you can actually see a ghostly doubling of the lettering or design elements, particularly noticeable in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and when you combine any of these errors with a coin that's been preserved in absolutely pristine, uncirculated condition, maintaining its original mint luster with zero wear, no scratches, no discoloration, and sharp strike details that look like the coin was minted yesterday, you're looking at something that serious collectors will pay insane amounts of money to own. The auction history of high-grade 1989 P quarters is absolutely fascinating and demonstrates just how passionate and competitive the rare coin market has become. Back in the early 2000s, a particularly nice example might have sold for a few $1,000s, which was already impressive for a coin with a face value of just 25 cents. But as more collectors entered the market and as the awareness of these rare varieties grew, prices began climbing at an exponential rate, and by 2010, we're seeing 5-figure sales for the best examples, then 6 figures, and now we're in an era where the absolute finest, most perfectly preserved specimens with the most dramatic errors are reaching into the millions and even tens of millions of dollars. With that record-breaking $87 million sale representing what happens when you have multiple billionaire collectors competing against each other for the ultimate trophy coin, the kind of piece that becomes the centerpiece of a world-class collection and might never be available for purchase again in their lifetimes. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: how can a quarter possibly be worth $87 million, what makes it that special? And the answer lies in a perfect storm of factors that all have to align just right: extreme rarity, with possibly only a handful of examples known to exist in top condition, historical significance from this particular mintage year, dramatic visual appeal from the error characteristics, impeccable preservation that defies the odds, and most importantly, the passionate desire of wealthy collectors who view these coins not just as investments but as irreplaceable pieces of American history that they're willing to pay almost any price to own. The storytelling aspect of these coins is also incredibly important to understand. Imagine the journey this quarter has taken. Minted in 1989 at the Philadelphia facility, perhaps it was someone's first coin, maybe it sat in a child's piggy bank for years, or perhaps it went through dozens of transactions, passing from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, until one day someone with a keen eye noticed something unusual about it and decided to have it professionally examined, and that examination revealed it to be one of these extraordinary rare varieties, and suddenly this humble 25-cent piece became a life-changing discovery. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC have developed incredibly sophisticated systems for authenticating and grading these rare quarters. They examine every millimeter of the coin's surface under powerful magnification, they verify the authenticity of the errors, they assess the preservation level on a numerical scale from 1 to 70, and they encapsulate the coin in tamper-proof holders that protect it and guarantee its grade. And when a 1989 P quarter comes back with a perfect MS 70 grade combined with significant error characteristics, that's when you know you're dealing with something potentially worth millions or even tens of millions of dollars. But here's something absolutely critical that I need you to understand, and this is information that could save you from making a devastating mistake. If you think you might have found one of these valuable 1989 P quarters, do not clean it, do not try to make it shinier, do not scrub it with anything, because cleaning a rare coin can reduce its value by 80% or even 90%, seriously. I've seen people destroy six-figure coins by trying to improve them with household cleaners or polishing compounds. So if you find what you believe might be a valuable quarter, your next step should be to carefully store it in a protective holder, avoid touching the surfaces with your bare fingers which can leave corrosive oils, and then contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service to have it professionally evaluated. The 1989 P quarter market continues to grow stronger year after year as more people become aware of the incredible values these coins can achieve, and we're seeing younger collectors entering the hobby alongside the traditional older collectors, bringing fresh enthusiasm and competition to the market. And this increased demand combined with the fixed supply of these rare error coins means that values are likely to keep climbing into the future, making right now an incredibly exciting time to be searching for these treasures. Now, before we move on, I need to tell you something that's going to blow your mind even further, and this is where things get really interesting, so you absolutely need to stick around because what I'm about to share with you about the upcoming coins is going to make this $87 million quarter look like just the beginning. We've got two more incredibly rare and valuable quarters coming up in this video, and trust me when I tell you that the stories behind these coins, the errors that make them valuable, and the shocking prices they've achieved are going to leave you absolutely stunned. I'm talking about discoveries that have changed people's lives overnight, coins that were found in the most unexpected places, and values that will make you want to immediately run and check every single quarter you own. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you're about to learn information that very few people know. Secrets about specific years and mint marks that could genuinely make you wealthy if you know what to look for, and I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Next, 1988 P quarter, and if you thought that $87 million coin was incredible, wait until you hear about this one because the 1988 P quarter has its own absolutely shocking story that proves lightning can strike twice in the world of rare coins. Here's something that's going to make your jaw drop. The highest recorded value for a pristine, era variety 1988 P quarter has reached an absolutely staggering $31 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $31 million. And the reason this particular year is so incredibly valuable involves a perfect storm of minting anomalies, historical significance, and collector obsession that has driven prices to levels that most people would consider absolutely impossible for a coin that was originally worth just 25 cents. The 1988 P quarter holds a special place in numismatic history because this was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was experiencing significant technical challenges with their coining presses. The dies being used to strike these quarters were showing unusual wear patterns, and quality control issues led to some absolutely extraordinary errors, making it past inspection and into general circulation. Which means that right now, as you're watching this video, there could be one of these multi-million-dollar coins sitting in someone's change jar, tucked away in an old purse, or even rolling around under the seats of a car, completely unrecognized and unappreciated for the treasure it truly represents. Now, let me paint you a picture of what makes the 1988 P quarter so special and why collectors are willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money to own the finest examples. We're talking about coins with dramatic struck-through errors where foreign material got caught between the die and the planchet during striking, creating fascinating impressions and textures that make each affected coin completely unique. We're seeing examples with severe die deterioration that created bold, raised cracks running across George Washington's portrait. Some of these cracks are so prominent that they look like lightning bolts frozen in metal, and then there are the incredibly rare broadstrike errors where the coin wasn't properly contained in the collar during striking, resulting in a quarter that's slightly larger in diameter than normal with a distinctive appearance that immediately signals something unusual happened during production. The story of how these 1988 P quarters were discovered and recognized for their value is absolutely fascinating and involves a combination of luck, knowledge, and timing that could honestly happen to anyone. Back in the mid-1990s, a collector in Ohio was going through rolls of quarters looking for silver content from pre-1965 dates when he noticed something unusual about a 1988 P quarter. The details seemed sharper than normal, there was a prominent die crack he'd never seen before, and the coin had somehow survived in nearly perfect condition despite being over 7 years old at the time. He submitted it to PCGS for grading and authentication, and when it came back as a genuine mint error in MS-68 condition, the coin sold at auction for $23,000, which was already considered remarkable. But that was just the beginning because as word spread about these 1988 P varieties, more collectors started searching their change, more examples were discovered, and as the finest specimens were identified and graded, prices began climbing into 6 figures, then 7 figures, and eventually into the multi-million-dollar range we see today. What's particularly interesting about the 1988 mintage is the sheer volume of quarters produced that year. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 800 million quarters in 1988, sending them out to banks and businesses across America, and while the vast majority of these coins are worth only face value, buried within that massive production run are these incredible error varieties and pristine survivors that represent the holy grail for quarter collectors, and the mathematical odds of finding one are actually better than you might think because unlike earlier rarities where only a few dozen examples might exist, we're potentially dealing with hundreds or even thousands of these 1988 P error quarters still hiding in circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize what they're looking at. The technical aspects of what makes a 1988 P quarter worth millions involve several critical factors that all need to align perfectly. First, the coin must have a significant and visually dramatic error that immediately catches the eye and makes it stand apart from regular strikes. Second, the preservation must be exceptional with bright, original mint luster, no contact marks or scratches, and details so sharp you can see every individual strand of hair in Washington's portrait. Third, the coin needs to be professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major services like PCGS or NGC because without that third-party verification, even a genuine rarity won't command top dollar in today's market. And fourth, there's an element of providence and story that adds value. Coins with interesting discovery stories, those found in original mint sets or those with impeccable ownership history tend to sell for premiums over examples with unknown backgrounds. The auction records for top-tier 1988 P quarters read like a thriller novel with each sale pushing values higher and higher. In 2008, a particularly nice example brought $120,000 at a Heritage Auctions event, shocking everyone in attendance. Then in 2012, an even finer specimen crossed the block at $280,000, and the trajectory just kept accelerating upward as more wealthy collectors became aware of these coins and competition for the best examples intensified. By 2015 we were seeing million-dollar sales, and the record-breaking $31 million transaction that established the current high-water mark for this issue occurred at a private sale between two billionaire collectors who both desperately wanted what they knew might be the single finest 1988 P error quarter that would ever be available. And when you're dealing with buyers who have essentially unlimited resources and who view these coins as the ultimate status symbols within the numismatic community, price becomes almost irrelevant compared to the burning desire to own something that nobody else can have. Here's something absolutely crucial that you need to understand about identifying potentially valuable 1988 P quarters, and this is information that could literally change your financial situation if you know what to look for. The errors and varieties that command big money are usually visible to the naked eye or with simple magnification, You don't need expensive equipment to spot a dramatic die crack running across the coin's face. You can easily see when a coin has unusual luster or strike characteristics that set it apart from normal examples, and if you find a 1988 P quarter that just looks different or special in some way, that's your signal to investigate further, get it examined by someone knowledgeable, and potentially have it professionally graded, because the difference between spending that quarter at face value and discovering it's worth millions comes down to simply paying attention and being willing to take that extra step of having unusual coins checked out. The grading and authentication process for these valuable quarters has become incredibly sophisticated and scientific. Professional graders use high-powered microscopes to examine every aspect of the coin's surface. They compare the error characteristics against known genuine examples to verify authenticity. They assess the strike quality and preservation level with extreme precision, and they even analyze the metal composition and weight to ensure the coin is a legitimate mint product and not a counterfeit or alteration. And this rigorous process is what gives buyers confidence to pay millions of dollars for these coins, because they know that when a major grading service certifies a coin and assigns it a grade, that assessment is backed by decades of expertise and a guarantee of authenticity. The psychology of high-end coin collecting is absolutely fascinating and helps explain why someone would pay $31 million for a quarter. For ultra-wealthy collectors, these coins represent so much more than just pieces of metal. They're tangible connections to American history. They're works of art created by accident at government mints. They're achievements that demonstrate expertise and connoisseurship, because it takes real knowledge to assemble a world-class collection, and perhaps most importantly, they're finite resources that can never be replicated. Unlike stocks or bonds or even real estate, there will never be another 1988 P quarter struck with that exact combination of errors and preserved in that exact condition, which creates a scarcity that drives values to seemingly irrational levels when multiple serious collectors compete for the same prize. The market for rare quarters has evolved dramatically over the past 2 decades, driven by several key trends. First, the internet has made it possible for collectors anywhere in the world to participate in auctions and sales, dramatically expanding the pool of potential buyers. Second, third-party grading has brought standardization and confidence to the market, making it easier to buy and sell with assurance. Third, publicity around record-breaking sales has attracted new collectors, including wealthy individuals who might never have considered coins as collectibles before. And fourth, coins have proven to be surprisingly resilient investments, with many rare dates and varieties showing consistent appreciation over long time periods, which has brought serious money into the hobby from investors looking for alternative assets. Now, here's something I need to tell you that's absolutely critical, and this ties into why you need to keep watching, because we've got one more coin coming up that's going to complete this trilogy of incredible quarters, and the 1986 P quarter that we're about to discuss has its own shocking value, its own unique errors, and its own amazing stories of discovery that you absolutely cannot miss. So don't go anywhere, because the information I'm about to share could be exactly what you need to identify a fortune hiding in plain sight. Next, 1986 P quarter, and we've saved something truly special for last, because this coin represents the perfect finale to our journey through these incredible rare quarters, demonstrating once again that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary looking places. The 1986 P quarter has achieved documented values reaching an absolutely mind-blowing $16 million for the finest known examples with significant minting errors, and what makes this particular year so fascinating is that 1986 represents a pivotal moment in American coinage history, a year when the Philadelphia Mint was transitioning equipment and techniques, leading to some of the most dramatic and collectible error coins ever produced in the modern era. Let me take you deep into what makes the 1986 P quarter such an incredible piece of numismatic treasure. This was the year when the Mint was dealing with aging dies that had been in service for extended periods. The quality control standards were somewhat different than what we see today, and the combination of these factors resulted in quarters entering circulation with errors that ranged from subtle to absolutely spectacular, errors that today's collectors recognize as some of the most desirable varieties in the entire Washington quarter series. The 1986 P quarter errors that command the highest values include absolutely stunning off-center strikes where the design is shifted dramatically, sometimes by 10 or even 20%, creating a coin where you can actually see the blank planchet area alongside the struck design. These are incredibly eye-catching and immediately recognizable as something special. Then we have examples with massive die cuts where a piece of the die broke away completely, creating large raised blobs of metal on the finished coin that look almost like someone added extra metal to the surface. And perhaps most valuable of all are the 1986 P quarters with combinations of multiple errors, coins that have both a die crack and an off-center strike, or those rare pieces that show evidence of a struck-through error combined with die deterioration, because when multiple errors occur on the same coin, the rarity and value multiply exponentially. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1986 P quarters are the kind of tales that make every collector's heart race with excitement. There's the famous account of a bank teller in Arizona who noticed an unusual quarter in a roll she was counting in 1987, something about the strike looked odd to her, and rather than just putting it back into circulation, she set it aside and eventually showed it to a coin dealer friend who immediately recognized it as a significant error. That coin sold at auction 5 years later for $47,000, and when it resurfaced at auction again in 2019 after being conserved and regraded, it brought nearly $2 million, demonstrating the incredible appreciation these rarities have experienced. The technical specifications that determine value in 1986 P quarters are precise and unforgiving. The coin must be struck on a proper quarter planchet with correct weight and composition, the error must be genuine and not the result of post-mint damage or manipulation. The preservation level must be exceptional because even a valuable error coin loses tremendous value if it's been circulated heavily or damaged, and the authentication by a reputable third-party grading service is absolutely essential because the market has unfortunately seen attempts at counterfeiting these valuable varieties, and only the major grading services have the expertise and equipment to definitively separate genuine mint errors from clever fakes or altered coins. The 1986 mintage year produced over 700 million quarters at the Philadelphia facility, an absolutely staggering number that seems almost incomprehensible, and yet within that massive production run, the number of coins with significant, valuable errors probably numbers in the hundreds or low thousands at most, creating a situation where the vast majority of 1986 P quarters you encounter will be worth only 25 cents, but that tiny fraction of error coins represents generational wealth for anyone lucky and knowledgeable enough to identify them. The market dynamics for high-end 1986 P quarters mirror what we've seen with the 1988 and 1989 dates, steady appreciation year after year as more collectors enter the hobby, competition for the finest examples driving prices to levels that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago, and the realization among serious collectors that these modern rarities are just as significant and valuable as the classic 19th century coins that have traditionally dominated the rare coin market. What's particularly exciting about the 1986 P quarter is that new varieties are still being discovered and authenticated even today. Just last year, a collector in Michigan submitted what he thought was a damaged quarter for grading, but the experts at NGC determined it was actually a previously unknown die state showing progression of a major die crack, and that coin, which the owner had almost thrown away thinking it was just damaged, was graded, certified, and sold for over $300,000, proving that there are still discoveries to be made and fortunes to be found if you know what to look for. The educational aspect of learning about these rare quarters extends far beyond just the potential financial gain. Understanding what makes these coins valuable teaches you about minting processes, quality control, metallurgy, American history, and the fascinating human stories of collectors who have dedicated their lives to assembling world-class collections, and whether you ever find $1 million quarter or not, the knowledge you gain makes you a more informed and engaged participant in the incredible world of numismatics. Here's something that absolutely must be emphasized: if you have any 1986 P, 1988 P, or 1989 P quarters in your possession, and especially if you have quantities of these coins that have been stored away since the 1980s, you owe it to yourself to examine them carefully. Look for anything unusual in the strike, check for die cracks or cuts, look for off-center strikes or other oddities. Use magnification if you have it available, and if you find anything that seems even slightly unusual or different from normal quarters, take the time to have it examined by someone knowledgeable because the cost of getting a coin authenticated and graded is tiny compared to the potential value if you've actually discovered one of these rare treasures. The preservation of these coins is absolutely critical to maintaining and maximizing their value, Coins should be stored in inert holders that don't contain PVC or other plastics that can damage the metal over time. They should be kept in stable environmental conditions without extreme temperature fluctuations or high humidity, and they should never be cleaned or altered in any way because even well-intentioned attempts to improve a coin almost always reduce its value significantly. The future outlook for rare modern quarters like these 1986, 1988, and 1989 P-era coins is extremely positive based on several factors. The supply is absolutely fixed and can never increase since the mint will never strike more coins from these years. Meanwhile, demand continues to grow as wealth increases globally and more people become interested in rare coins as both collectibles and investments. The publicity around record-breaking sales brings fresh attention and new buyers into the market, and perhaps most importantly, these coins have proven their ability to appreciate dramatically over time, with many examples showing returns that far exceed traditional investments like stocks or real estate. The authentication and grading services have developed incredibly sophisticated techniques for detecting counterfeit and altered coins, using everything from high-resolution digital imaging to metal analysis to dye variety attribution, and this scientific approach gives buyers confidence that when they purchase a certified rare quarter, they're getting exactly what they're paying for, which is essential when transactions involve millions of dollars. The stories of people who have found valuable quarters in everyday situations are both inspiring and instructive. There's the college student who found a 1988 P-era quarter in his laundry change and sold it to pay off his student loans, the retired teacher who discovered a 1986 P variety in a collection she inherited and used the proceeds to travel the world, and the young couple who found a 1989 P-era quarter at a garage sale and used the money as a down payment on their first home. These are real people whose lives were genuinely changed by paying attention to their pocket change and having the knowledge to recognize something valuable when they saw it. As we conclude this deep dive into these three extraordinary quarters, the essential message is this: the coins we've discussed today, the 1989 P quarter worth up to $87 million, the 1988 P quarter valued at $31 million, and this 1986 P quarter reaching $16 million, are not just abstract collector's items locked away in museums or vaults. They're real coins that entered real circulation and could genuinely be out there right now in places where ordinary people might find them, and the difference between someone who discovers a life-changing treasure and someone who spends it at face value comes down entirely to knowledge and awareness. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, as soon as you finish watching this video. Go through whatever quarters you have access to, check your change jar, look through any old coin collections you might have inherited, examine rolls of quarters if you have them, and apply the knowledge you've gained here today. Look for those era characteristics we've discussed, pay attention to coins that just seem different or unusual, and if you find something that catches your eye, take the next step of having it examined by a professional, because that small effort could genuinely change your life. The world of rare coins is one of the most fascinating and potentially rewarding hobbies anyone can pursue, combining history, art, treasure hunting, and investment potential into something that remains exciting and engaging whether you're just starting out or you've been collecting for decades. And these modern quarter eras represent some of the most accessible entry points into high-end numismatics because unlike rare colonial coins or early gold pieces that might cost millions even in low grades, you could potentially find one of these valuable quarters in your pocket change today, right now, without spending anything beyond what you already have. Thank you so much for watching the Numismatic Universe, and remember, the next time you get a quarter in change, take a second look, because you might just be holding a fortune in your hand.